So, backstory on this little theory talk here. Corey introduced a couple days ago. Well, actually, literally a
Yeah.
day ago, Corey introduced me to the Netflix series Stranger Things. Um, I've heard about it in passing. I don't even think I watched a trailer for it, but um, damn, was he spot on with this one. So I have thus since yesterday um, ripped through 4 episodes so far, and I'm completely hooked. It's absolutely brilliant. So first and foremost, thank you, Corey, for
Yeah,
introducing me to the world of Stranger Things.
not a problem. It was a pretty interesting sort of setup. I heard about it on a Reddit thread actually, and it inspired me to look into the trailer a little bit. And I watched it with my wife, and we were just sold hook, line, and sinker. It had Winona Ryder. It had a sort of '80s retro vibe to it, which sort of I think everyone can love. And that's what got us going on it. And so we checked it out, and I think I sent everyone the email at about episode 6, and that's the one where it's really going to start taking off for you, and things start clicking and start rolling forward, and that's when you start to really get the payoff. So I think you're in for a lot more exciting stuff on top of that. It all started when I was curious about the brothers Duffer. Whenever you see a new TV show or a new movie, you tend to wonder when there's a brother set up or a brother and sister or sister set up. You just sort of wonder about what makes them unique enough to be working as a pair. And in this instance, it was Wayward Pines. They wrote, I think, 3 or 4 episodes together. And as you know, Wayward Pines has a very similar type feel as to what Stranger Things is going for.
I actually didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's kind of good info. So for those that do not know, Stranger Things takes place in 1983 specifically. In this, actually, I don't even know. It's Hawkins, Indiana. It takes place in Hawkins, Indiana, but I don't even know if that's a real place. I forgot. But this is like straight out of. I don't know if you remember when we were kids, but this is like straight up. This is like straight up Erie, Indiana, like stuff, man. Like I don't know if
Yeah,
you remember that
yeah.
show back in the
Like,
day.
are you afraid of the dark? Goosebumps. I watched Goosebumps, and they still sort of hold up. They're a little bit Canadian, but they have like Ryan Gosling in it. So, what's not to like about Goosebumps? It's R.L. Stein at his best.
Is Ryan Gosling really in Goosebumps?
Yeah, he's in an episode of Goosebumps in like season 4 or 5 or something like that. He plays a ghost boy, I think.
If I can find it, I'm literally gonna
Yeah.
play it right there right now.
Back to the show. I think the best sort of setup to explain what Stranger Things is like is to sort of mash it up into this equation where it sort of spits out something at the end. And what you do is you take a little bit of ET, except instead of ET, you use a little girl. And then you add in some of that retro vibe, Dungeons and Dragons, plenty of X-Men talk, and then you add on top of that sort of a Spielberg aesthetic and sort of notion of coming of age and what that sort of means. And, I think it's really just an ode to our youth, and I think that's really what sort of captured it for me, but it's more so the characters that kept me there and kept us going through.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm actually only 4 episodes. I just finished the 4th episode. I'm halfway through this thing, and by far, I don't know if and just this is a spoiler alert. So there's gonna be talk. It's probably gonna Corey will do a good job.
I'll do my best to spoiler tag anything.
But there will be spoilers for episodes 1 through 4 in this talk. So just forewarning right now. Right off the bat, I was actually drawn to, believe it or not, to Jim Hopper Hops.
Yeah, yeah.
David Harbour, like I forgot how much I love David
Yeah.
Harbour, man. He
Yeah,
plays that
one of
character.
those yeah. He's one of those guys that is just consistently good in supporting roles, and so when he shows up in this instance, like you're like, I've seen him. He's been really great in supporting roles, but can he sort of like carry a show and as one of the protagonists? And it turns out that he can, and it was really exciting to see him do that. So
So, so right off the bat, I mean, it's as you previously mentioned, right? This has got the '80s feel. This has the total synthesized music soundtrack.
yeah,
I mean, even in the intro, I'm gonna try playing the intro right here too, so you guys can see it. But like, the synth sounds through this whole thing is just makes me giddy.
and I've been listening to the soundtrack as well. Like the soundtrack is legitimately good.
Oh man, even font, even the friggin' font reminds me of like Amazing
Exactly.
Stories back in the day, as you said it. Like it's that little, I don't know,
Yeah.
it's just awesome.
It's like in the same family as the Mr. Robot font, but maybe just a little bit different.
Yep, yep. One part, as you said, one part ET. I think before you described it as one part ET, one part Goonies. Like there's just a lot of
Yes, Goonies.
there's absolutely nothing not to love about this, especially from our generation.
Mm.
We lived.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of those sort of winks and nods is casting Winona Ryder as one of the protagonists, the lead protagonist. She was in Beetlejuice, and like that is just that same sort of vibe and that sort of eerie, ethereal vibe that I think she just carries with her whenever she does all of her roles. Anyway, but I think including her is it's a great choice as well.
It is a great choice, but I've had to get used to Winona Ryder's acting again. Like it's been so long, and she has this voice, and
Yeah,
it can get a little whiny in some of those scenes, right? So, but then
sure.
it harkens back to like she was just as whiny in Beetlejuice. She has that like she still has that going on. Anyway, I had to get used to it again, but now that I'm used to it, I'm kind of it's kind of working for
Yeah,
me.
another sort of noteworthy thing about the show is that and maybe I'm going to be catching flack for this from anybody, but they didn't use typically societally deemed attractive children in the lead roles, which is a big change. It's the sort of anti-Disneyification of media, and I think that's sort of an interesting stylistic choice in of itself. Maybe not a whole theme by itself, but something interesting to note anyway.
Nonetheless, it's infinitely more interesting to watch. That's for sure.
Yeah,
Because
agreed.
all these kids have acting chops,
Yeah,
especially Dustin. I don't know, something about Dustin, man. I'm just drawn to him. Him and his missing teeth. Um,
yeah,
the very opening scene. Let's just like you're introduced to Amazing Stories through these four kids playing Dungeons and
yeah,
Dragons in the mom's basement,
yeah.
and there's this whole Demogorgon scene where
Yeah.
it's just
It, it really makes me wish that I had played Dungeons and Dragons when I was a kid. I didn't understand the rules; they seemed a little bit opaque, so I steered away from them. And I think I really did myself a disservice by not playing as much Dungeons and Dragons as I could have.
You're absolutely right. Like I want to go back and I want to tell them that you guys are gonna rule the world someday. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like
yeah,
it's gonna be
yeah,
totally cool to play this. Like keep
yeah.
doing it and let me
Exactly. It's
join you
gonna
while I'm at it.
it's gonna pants you or anything.
Um,
Cells.
Also, and I'm going back because my love for Dustin is still kind of coming
Mm,
through here. Like
sure.
when he rips out when he's talking to the bullies for the first time, and he's like, I might even mispronounce it, but he's like it's clitocrania dysplasia, whatever he says.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Like I literally was just dropped. I was like, this show. That's when I knew you weren't full of shit. I guess is what I'm saying.
Mm,
Like I knew
yeah.
this show was for real. Um, yeah, in any scene, in any show where you could receive a shock through a telephone, I mean, that's another
Yeah.
weird shit that
That
starts
was
happening.
unexpected too. I wasn't expecting any sort of shock, so it was a little bit of a shock itself when you see that happening. Which is, I don't know. The show is just really sort of effective, cheaply done but well done tricks.
Yep, yep. Um, so back to I want to talk for a second about Jim
Sure,
Hopper again, real quick.
sure.
I as I said, I think he's one of the most interesting characters. We don't know a lot about his backstory, and we know his
Right.
daughter. We know his daughter died, and in the back of my head, like, and this is where I'm gonna start theorizing. So don't give any visual cues here,
Sure.
and I'm sure someone might ruin it in the comments too.
Mm.
But, I, I just have a feeling like the daughter's gonna come back into play of some sort. But I almost think that might be even too cliche. You know what I mean? Like, could she be in this world or this secondary the upside down?
Well,
I don't
well,
know.
I think it's pretty safe to say that she doesn't overtake the stage in any way. She is used, but she's not overused by any means.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. In episode 2, there was actually I was very kind of brought back. Chris Sullivan. I don't have a lot of experience with him, but I actually looked him up after he committed
Mm.
suicide in the second episode, The Cook. I like that guy, Benny. When Benny committed suicide, The Cook where he shot himself in the head. Like he was actually a very interesting character in the first episode, and then just the fact that they offed him. Like
I
when
don't, remember the character, to be perfectly honest.
The character with he was the actual cook in the restaurant. He was the first one. He called in.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. He
yeah,
was expected. I unexpectedly liked him.
yeah, yeah,
Like
yeah.
he
I was
like
pissed
really
off when
got
he.
L when he first caught her and seemed like he was kind of aggressive, and I was getting ready to hate the guy, but then like he pulled that like sort of 180 switch on you and just sort of switched around the trope just a little bit. I was expecting to see this poor girl have to run for like another half an hour.
Yep.
But luckily, somebody was kind-hearted, and she was taken care of, which was nice to see.
It was. That and everything else that kind of happened in the first two episodes, like I was pulled into Hawkins. I actually felt like, well, they actually did a lot for world building here. They did a lot for
They did,
a sense of
yeah.
community.
Yeah, Brandon Sanderson does this lecture on world building where he talks about revealing the iceberg, where you keep most of the world below the surface of the water, like a typical iceberg, where some of it's above the water, but most of it is below. And he does a really good job, the Duffer Brothers, that is, of really sort of weaving this tale. And it's not that difficult to weave a tale where you're using sort of tropes from our childhood, but the way it's done interestingly and uniquely, and it's got a nice little spin whenever it shows up.
That was good. It's
Yeah.
I enjoy it. The continuity. I also want to kind of praise the continuity in the shots too, because I do some video editing, so I really appreciate when I see stuff like for instance, there was I don't know if you remember, but like during the scene where you see Lucas spitting in his hand, and then he like shakes Dustin's hand, or then he shakes Dustin's hand, and then it cuts to Mike, cuts back to Mike, but in the background immediately you still see Dustin like in the same pose complaining about spitting.
Yeah.
There's continuity there. That's like like, a lot of the shots are very well composed. They're like, I'm not missing a beat. There's not like a head turned a different way. Like this.
And that's probably an end result of having a brother duo work on something like this together, because they're both looking at the material from different angles, and they can both sort of offer an idea that's sort of maybe just offset just a little bit, that makes the idea a little bit more unique.
Brother, you're messing this up. No.
No. Yeah. Just continue it visually. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think one of the things that I liked about the show overall is that they used Lucas's character in some interesting ways, and again, it's that same sort of thing where they twist it just a little bit, but he spends a lot of time being antagonistic in the later episodes, but I think the way he sort of comes to full circle, finishes his character arc for the season, it's really well done, I have to say.
And it's nice to see smoking make its return again in TV.
Yeah.
In movies. Like, when's the last time you saw someone smoke? Like, honestly.
No, nobody does it anymore. They just want to definitely stay away from smoking, which is understandable. Like, it's smoking is disgusting, but every once in a while.
Yeah. So, by the time I got into episode 3, I kind of had it in my head that there was something. The kids were disappearing, and I forgot what kind of tipped me off to it. But I was like, "There's no way like they're just disappearing. Like, they're." I feel like they're still around. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like they're still around, and that was absolutely confirmed in episode 3. The whole concept of the upside down, or the other world.
That's a really exciting aspect of the show that I really enjoyed, which was another one of those tropes from our childhood. It showed up in Castlevania Symphony of the Night. It showed up in Final Fantasy and a ton of other games that it sort of lend this sort of transmedia sort of flavor to the show. I think, and we see that a lot in video games, but not a lot in TV shows or movies.
It's refreshing.
Yeah, it is.
By episode 3, like, the kids were disappearing. Winona Ryder was already going off the edge. Like, she's going crazy. I actually thought she would like wait till like episode 6 or something before we started seeing her crazy.
Yeah, no, she dives right full tilt into the crazy, and that's one of the things that I appreciated about the pacing of the show is that, like, any parent, I would assume, I'm not a parent myself, but like any parent, their psychological condition would deteriorate really quickly, as would anybody. And I think that's another instance where the show proved to be a little bit more human and showing people as characters.
Something that I don't know watchers might overlook, but actually I picked up on it in like episode 3. Like a lot of and this goes back to your your comment about how they didn't hire like like typical Disney kids, but like
Yeah.
a lot of these kids, and this is it's kind of a weird question. Like a lot of these kids have like pimples on their faces and stuff like that. You think that's
Yeah.
you think that's like makeup, or you think they're actually like breaking out, man? That'd be kind of
I don't know. You have to imagine that at some point it's just beyond the kids' control, and they're just showing up to work and being like, "Sorry guys, I got this fucking pimple on my face."
Like it worked. Like they're just like screw it. Like it worked. Like I don't know. It's
Yeah.
just a different way to kind of handle the storytelling, and it just
Yeah.
adds to it. I guess is my point.
Makes it a little bit more authentic. Yeah, I can see that.
So the pool scene in episode 3, I think it was, where the friend gets
Right.
taken in the pool. And that's when we actually get first introduced to the inside. But that was actually kind of freaky.
Yeah.
Even more freaky that the whole thing was being voyeur photographed by that kid. But the reason I brought it up is because there's all these little musical cues that go on in this show too, and a lot of it's synth music. But then you got like these synth remakes, and I noted in that scene actually they started playing "Waiting for a Girl Like You" in the background. It's just again a lot of this is really well done, and it just kind of draws you.
Yeah, and just to your point there, there was a really interesting sort of small detail to the upside down world, as it's called in the show, where Barbara was sitting on the diving board over the pool, and the pool's full of water, obviously, because it's in a residential neighborhood, et cetera, et cetera. Except in the upside down world, it's just a completely empty pool, and everything's more desolate. And I think adding details like that definitely helps to create the air that we're looking for in this sort of town.
Yeah. So I have a question for you. So
Yeah.
when the girl starts using her powers, what's the girl? I actually forgot the girl's
Elle.
name. Elle. Yeah. Elle, what was it short for? LD.
Ele-
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, she had zero.
Yeah.
At,
Whenever she uses her powers, like if you look at her face, and I don't know if it's intentional or not, but you could start seeing like marks on her face and like veins on her face. I don't know if maybe it's just I'm super like I used a lot of drawn
that definitely
veins to the
plays into
surface. I don't know.
the show later in the later episodes.
Does it? Okay.
There's some really great scenes revolving around that mechanic. So I don't want to spoil anything, but I will say that there are some really great uses of it. So you'll see that soon.
I'm glad I picked up on that then. But so the only other thing from episode 3 I want to mention is the whole Christmas light scene with Joyce, Winona Ryder's character. I enjoyed that. Like I saw that in the trailer right before I watched it for the first time.
I was waiting for that moment as well, just to see what was going on, and they didn't waste any time launching into that. So if you're worried about pacing with the show, it's not unfounded. Like just go ahead and watch the show. Like it carries you through. It's 8 episodes. It's a breeze to watch, and you'll have a really great time.
It felt like so when I was watching that, I actually felt like a little bit like I was watching the Martian scene where he was he's picking up the camera and then looking for the different angles, like how the letters are being lit up and stuff. But
yeah,
the scene where she actually has the whole ball of lights, the white lights in her hands.
Yeah.
The scene, like I don't know, that kind of hit home a little bit.
Yeah, I think seeing anytime you employ Christmas lights in a nighttime setting invokes something for a large segment of the population. And I think what really excited me about this one was that they used it in a really creative way. I don't want to. Can we get into spoilers about the way the lights are used?
Sure. Yeah. Absolutely.
Sure. Okay. So. Winona Ryder's character strings up Christmas lights throughout the house, on the ceiling, on the wall, wherever, and the notion that Will is there in this upside down world sort of flitters about in the house through the Christmas tree lights, and it's a really great use of it because it directs attention, and it's just like a sort of expedient way of exposition within the story, so it's really interesting to see it, and I liked it.
Um, barring any conversation for episode 4 for a second, I actually didn't see at the end of episode 3 when they drag Sam. What's his name? The kid that went missing. I forgot his name.
Will Byers.
Will Byers, yeah. When they drag Will's body out of the lake, I was like, "Holy shit!" I didn't think they would actually do that.
Yeah, they go there.
Enough.
There's some interesting follow up there, but I don't want to get into too much there for spoiler territory.
Well, so I did watch episode 4, so I got the explanation for that, but which was awesome. Like it was just great. Like that was perfect. But at that point in time when I saw them drag the body out, I was like, wow, it's like a little Game of Thrones action. Wasn't expecting
Yeah.
that.
There will be other characters that happens to. You're sort of bummed about seeing go.
Oh, you just ruined it. No, I'm just kidding. Okay. The Veil of Shadows. That's what it's called. I was trying to think of the
Veil of Shadows.
The Upside Down.
New game, yeah.
That was I actually watched a little bit of episode 5. When the
what are your predictions for the remainder of the season?
Okay. Well, now that we know, just again spoilers. This is episode 4, so when at the end when the cop opens up the body and obviously it's stuffed or whatever. One that was just phenomenal, but that plays in my theory where he's gonna be okay. So all these kids are kind of in the Veil of Shadows right now, right? So I'm thinking like there's an entrance in that one laberatory, right?
Right.
But I don't think,
which is very Cronenberg-like, by the way. It's like that was very creepy, and it's that sort of melding of blending the area between what's actually man-built and what's organic, like the aliens and H.R. Geiger. Like there's just that blending of what is real, what is organic, what is metal. That was really interesting, and also, what's the opposite of phallic?
Let me look that up.
It was very vaginal, I guess you could say.
Yeah. I was trying to think, what goes in? I'm like, so the predictions, I think I got it like in the back of my mind, like there's something innocent. There's still some sort of innocence I feel in this show. Like I don't think like there's messed up things happening, but I think it's all like 80s messed up where things are always good in the end. Like it always turned out okay, right? That's how we were raised. Like shit's gonna be okay.
Yeah.
Like so. Whatever is going to happen, and maybe we'll go into that, but I think everything's going to be okay. I think he's going to be returned, but I don't know anything about like a season.
I won't get into spoilers.
If it's like a different story in season 2, or if there isn't in season 2, so I don't know if it's going to be like a cliffhanger. So I don't know if it's going to be like a True Detective type thing where they do a different story. I don't know, but I think Will's going to come back. I think her friend's going to come back. I think. Maybe even they would go so far. This is kind of cliche, but Elle might sacrifice herself or do something like that, close the rifts, so to speak. But now we know that there's more than one rift. There's holes all over the friggin' place that you can enter into this place, which kind of blew my mind. That's kind of where I left off. But I was like, oh, okay. So the compasses are, which made sense because that's why the compasses were kind of pointing in the wrong direction. It wasn't giving them an exact readout right to the lab, right? They got kind of thrown off there for a while. I don't know, and that's the fun of it, Corey. I don't know. I don't have really good predictions because this is kind of taking me by storm here.
You're at a really great point in the story. Actually, it's just about to really start picking up, and then it really doesn't sort of let off until I think about halfway through the last episode. So you're in for a hell of a ride, and anybody else who wants to check it out would be doing themselves a favor by checking out the show.
Absolutely. So after we're done, maybe we'll come back here and we'll kind of discuss the rest of it.
Sounds good.
See what happens there. So cool. This has been a Theory Talk. I'm Ben.
I'm Corey.
And we will see you soon.
See ya.